All right, welcome to episode 100 of Hobby Hotline. This is the Tuesday edition. We coined that the overtime version during the week here, and I'm joined by two gentlemen. They're not new to the hobby, but they're new to the show. They're both on the same episode, making their debut appearance here on Hobby Hotline. To my right on the screen, Mr. Adam Palmer, Heroes for Sale, and below him, only on the screen, is Corey Donovan, Yam Wax. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, buddy. And I'll say I'm certainly below Adam when it comes to TikTok followers. Adam's
Yeah,
all over that game.
TikTok, yeah.
Well, listen, a nice number episode to make your debut, episode 100. That number is going to go up now. We're doing two shows a week. Speaking of that, let me just kind of do a little house cleaning. We're live on Tuesday nights, obviously, if you're watching us live, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Saturday mornings, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. or 8 a.m. Pacific time. So two shows now. I'm getting the audio up to usually the following day. So if you missed the live show, you can catch it on YouTube whenever you want to. Or if you just, you don't want to see ugly guys like me, you can listen to the audio version as early as the next day. So pick your poison, as they say. So this is always a call-in show. We obviously have a chat room as well, and we'll use whatever you say if it's not too naughty, and we'll put it on the screen. For example, Tom Felch says happy 100. Thank you, Mr. Felch. Any comments, questions, we'll respond to them in kind, and we appreciate that. If you're not scared, as the kids say, I'm going to put the link up here. I'll put it in chat. Feel free to call in and join us on the screen itself. We'd love to have you in that fashion. I think I'll put the link up.
Our host is getting a little bit choppy here, Adam.
All right. So let's get it.
I chalk it up to the metaverse, and it's episode number 100. And the metaverse is trying to encroach on us physical IRL trading card collectors.
Yeah,
but we're not done. We're not done.
We'll turn this moment into like an NFT or something. It'll be the glitch moment 1 of 1 or something like that.
Yeah, or at least a viral TikTok moment for you, man.
Right? Yeah.
Could do double duty.
Make my debut, and it kicks the host out.
That's right. Both of us. Hey, we're two newbies. We're gonna hold this fort down, but we need. We're gonna take what we can from the chat. Adam, do you want to introduce the first topic today?
Yeah, sure. So, I think one thing that isn't really something that, I guess it's not really announced. It's something that us as content creators kind of talk about and kind of focus on is the Prism, or excuse me, the grading numbers for Prism. So recently Zion hit 20,000 PSA 10s, and kind of across the board, I think it's probably the most graded card by PSA. And I think, I'm definitely interested in what you think of this. And I kind of have mixed emotions whether I think it's good or it's bad. So I'm definitely interested to see, what other people have to say about what do you think about the 20,000 PSA number, or the 20,000 PSA 10s, not just PSA.
It's a gigantic number. We're talking, if we add that up, it's 333 feet tall. If we were to actually stack those physical slabs one on top of the other, I just punched it in the calculator. And that's the Statue of Liberty stands 305 feet tall. Recently, it saved the city of New York and Ghostbusters 2, as I just watched with my kid. But Statue of Liberty, 305 feet tall, 27 feet shorter than if you stacked all 20,000 Zions on top of each other. It just makes you step back.
I think I saw an interesting statistic. Buster is a sports media mogul entrepreneur, and I think he tweeted out the other day that it was something along the lines of $1.5 million have been spent. If you average out the grading cost on that Zion Prism, $1.5 million has been spent just grading that card through PSA, which is another, like we're bringing up all these crazy numbers, but it's like, this is the reality of the situation. I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And but it's one of those things. Like someone in the chat, I think Tom Feig just mentioned that the '89 Griffey is the number one ever graded. The Luca card is still, I think, has Luca surpassed the Zion at this point still?
I think it's back and forth. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. And so you've got people who want this card. These are the names. I guess Zion is maybe more up in the air these days, but Luca and Trey and Zion are the cards that folks are going to remember from this era that they want to have. And so as a collector, are you happy that you're able to get one, presumably for a lower price as people, the supply is out there, or, and then we have the two sides of the hobby, the investors who thought they'd go all in on Zion, get PSA 10s. We're kind of, so many people were new to the hobby the last couple of years that they were just buying base cards. And some people are probably stuck holding a pretty heavy bag.
There's a comment from Eric, those back pages. That's a point. If Zion lives up to the hype, as they say, 20,000 cards is not really a lot. It's not short printed. That's true too. So there's two sides to that coin. But I think it becomes even more of an issue. God forbid, I'm not rooting for this to happen, obviously, but he's had some early injury issues. Nothing major. But a large frame on that body, if he was to have sort of those injuries that sort of have a career that doesn't live up to what could have been, then that becomes an outlier as well. But I think, in the grand scheme of things, is when those submission prices before the increase by the grading companies, everything was being sent in. But now, they raised it initially to 300. The rumor is, guys, I'm sure you heard it too, that in a week or two here, they're going to go back to regular subs. But I'm hearing, again, it's not confirmed. The rumor is at $100 rather than you'll be able to submit at 100 rather than the only level. In PSA's case, at 300. That for me, who I love grading, I love subbing cards, I love buying them. Selling them, $100. I'm not saying I'd never sub a card at $100, but man, you really have to think about what you're sending. You got to think about the whole cost ratio. Is this card worth it? And what's the one thing that PSA, the one thing everyone loves about PSA, right? That registry. If you're trying to do a set registry, you're not going to, submit a common card to get that set registered at $100. And so I think if they never come back down again, and I don't know if they want to, I really worry about, I don't have any set registries, but that's a big thing. I think for some people, that's going to hurt the, if you will, the image or the reputation of PSA, where they're kind of, now you can't, if you already have it. What you'd have to do is actually buy already graded cards to complete that set registry. What's going to happen there? Mike Monahan was on this show last week, and he talked about this. It's actually going to drive those prices up because those cards are going to become in more demand. A common card out of a 65 Topps baseball set to complete your registry, you're not going to send that in at $100, but you'll try to buy it at 20. And then when that demand goes up, like everything in life, right? So does the price. My son came in tonight and told me the dollar store, everything's going to be $1.25. I thought he was kidding with me. And he said, no, that's real. It's their signs on the door. So even the dollar store is not $1 anymore, folks. So, just crazy.
So I'm just going to jump in. Quick aside, I keep looking up heights of different structures. U.S. Capitol building, 288 feet. So Luca is almost 50 feet taller when you stack them up. All those Luca PSA 10s, 50 feet taller than the Capitol. So anyway, so Nat has mentioned, and I think your point about the set registry is really interesting because Nat recently on an interview mentioned that they're thinking about how will they constrain the grading going forward, because they can't take in the deluge, but they really want to open up some lower tiers eventually. And he did mention the set registry as a possibility. Like if you've started a set and you have a few cards in that set and you have cards you need or you've gotten to try to complete that set, well, it's possible you might be able to get a jump in the line to get your cards graded, or to have those lower tiers available. Maybe they come as bonuses or something. I'm just speculating on all that, but he had mentioned that perhaps you could tie in the set registry to the admittance line of who gets to grade cards at those lowest tiers, or perhaps at discounted tiers.
So you're talking about almost sort of qualifiers. It can only maybe be these cards, these kind of names. In other words, you can't sneak a Mickey Mantle in there. If it's if it's Glenn Becker to shortstop for the Cubs, all right, we'll give you that cheaper rate. But it's sort of kind of what they do now though with the upcharges, right? Because the rumor is more people are that very expensive card. There more people are going through the process of examining it. Whether that's true or not, I've heard people, say they don't buy that. I don't know, but that's where some of the upcharges come from. Interesting comment from one of our hosts. He's not on today. From Bo, he says his wild prediction as this is just the beginning. The future will only want cards and slabs. I encounter countless younger collectors only wanting slabs and turn away from raw cards. Yeah, I mean, it's at a level it's never been at. That's how these companies got millions of cards behind. It's just because of the demand to get cards graded, to have your cards in slabs. And I get, I would love for Nat or someone from PSA or even Beckett who has those higher price levels, like to say, like, what is the end game? Like, do you ever, I don't know if we'll ever see $12 submissions or $20 submissions, but what is the lowest level that you can go and still offer, quality, service? And, I think a sponsor of my show is SGC, but I'm going to be honest, whether they were a sponsor or not, and I only said they were just for full disclosure, I think they're going to be one of the big benefactors from this if that price never really comes down. I think they do one of the best jobs for the price. They have right now arguably the quickest turnaround time, unless you're paying that $300 Super Express price from PSA, but for bang for buck, in other words, they're the best turnaround time. They're reputable. They've been around a long time. They have a reputation. A lot of people say, well, they're more known for vintage. I could argue that recently, but even if that's the case, even I'll give you that. It's still a great option for a lower price point and to get your cards back quicker. And I think I still got stuff, guys, at PSA from October of last year. We're in November of 21. This is October of 20, and they're still, I believe, in the research level. So it's crazy. If I didn't take pictures of what I sent in, I wouldn't even remember what it was. So, it's almost like a surprise when you get them back. Oh, I forgot about that. And, we can go into the whole, now I wouldn't have sent that in now, but I sent it in then. That's we can do a whole show on that as well.
Yeah, I've had some surprises of those PSA returns. The unpleasant surprise side of it are the upcharges. You know me, John, I like to prospect on cards maybe that haven't popped off yet. But what happens in those situations is if you sent them in for grading 9 months ago, and then suddenly the card went from nobody was buying it to selling for a lot of money, your $10 submission can become a $300 submission. And I've had, multi-thousands of dollar upcharges on a couple of recent returns.
And
which is good, but it's also a lot. It's unexpected.
It's good and bad. And I'm going to stick up for you. Yeah. I mean, that's not really your fault. Why should you pay the freight? Like they didn't grade it in the time. If they would have graded it when you sent it, why should you be penalized for their slowness or them being shorthanded or the pandemic or whatever excuse you want to make why it's taking that long? I mean, it should, truthfully, if they want to play that game, it should be when it's received. All right. It was received, November 23rd, 2021. At that time, this card was not where it is, a year later. We can't do that. To me, that if you want to make those rules, be fair on the other side of it too. I don't like upcharges in general. I think you should pay, pay for per card. You're getting your card graded. Um, some will argue, well, John, if it's a 52 tops man, that's a whole, they got to handle that with care. There's so much. If that gets lost, they got to pay for it. I get it, but maybe that's not a great example because that's just a huge iconic card. But to me, you're paying to get your card graded, whatever that price is, whether it's $300, $100. I think that's what it should be. It's the upcharges. I've said that from day one on my show. Like I don't like it. I think it's a money grab. I've heard other people literally call it a scam, like a legalized scam. I'm sort of straddling that line. It's pretty close. I mean, I guess it depends. If I'm in a bad mood, I'll go ahead and say that. But to me, it's whatever your submission price is per card. That's what it should be. Like, what difference does it make? And that's why they raise the submission prices anyways, because they want to slow the tide of some of those lesser name cards to begin with. Some of those $10, $5 cards that people were submitting. So the price, the submission price raise itself was designed to do that. Why penalize somebody? You should be honored that someone's sending in a $30,000 LeBron card that they want your company's logo on that slab. Why charge someone why charge them more? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I don't like
interesting
that.
the viewpoint. We're seeing it through the eyes of the collector and the eyes of the consumer. Why are they dinging us with these charges? But the fact is, our behavior doesn't indicate that we'll ever stop doing it. We go ahead and send in our cards knowing we're going to face up charges. We send in the $30,000 LeBron, fully expecting to pay that $1,000, $2,000 grading fee. And that's the only thing that'll stop it. From the company standpoint, it's economics. So, I get what you're saying. And with the collector at the helm, you hope that they do come up with some innovative things to try to mitigate some of these concerns that we have. And there are edge cases like mine where things just went up so much and were not there before. But from their standpoint, it's all economics, and they're succeeding people, and we're not changing our behavior, which is, hard to do as a mass of people.
Yeah, I also think grading is just such a double-edged sword when you really look at it. Like, we want our cards to be sent in, get a good grade, but also we don't. In some cases, we don't want to spend the extra money when it becomes a good grade. It's a very strange kind of paradox that I guess us as collectors are in. And some collectors, investors, it's kind of all sort of different reasons why people are sending it in. I mean, obviously someone who's maybe leaning towards investing, obviously they're looking at the cost of everything much more, maybe I guess in a way much more closely than maybe a collector who's like, I'm not planning on selling this card, so whether it costs me this or it costs me this, it doesn't necessarily really matter. But I think in like I said, in that way, it's a double-edged sword also, where it's like we want all of our cards to get a 10, but then that makes our cards less rare when it does get a 10. Because like if like, for example, I was buying a lot of soccer fairly early, and I bought the Mbappe PSA 10 Prism. And I think at the time there was probably like 200 or so of those cards, and I sent some of them in, and then now there's like 2,500. So it's like it's the increase in grading, like it's caused by the people sending the cards in, but it's not. We don't, I guess, look at it that way, where it's like we're just sending our cards in, but there may be 100 other people who are also sending that same card in.
Yeah, I mean, this is where where that term, that junk slab error, comes in. I get asked all the time. I'm sure you guys do too. Is that what you would say it is? And I'm sure there is. When you have that many cards slabbed, and in this case, heavy PSA, like it or not, is the industry leader. We may not like everything they do. We could be critical of them, but we also got to give them the due credit as well. But I will say this: this is sort of a critical time period for them too, because I think, with a lot of new people coming into the hobby, they're not. We know what PSA is. They just, they don't know them in the same fashion we do, and so they're just going to look at the whole grading landscape and say, "Hey, what gives me the best price? What gives me the best ROI? What gives me the best turnaround time when I can have my cards back on my desk or at my house?" And I think the door is a little bit open depending on what PSA does here in the next 1 or 2 years when it comes to price level, turnaround times, and that sort of thing. And I know I haven't mentioned Beckett. I sort of kind of put them in the same. Not that Beckett's grading as many cards or getting as many cards, but they're kind of the two as far as what's going to cost you the most to get your card graded by them. And then you have that next level, SGC, CSG. You ask 5 people, you get 5 different answers of what order they're in. Some people like HGA. I'm not a fan. We can do a whole show on that. You can listen to my stuff and you'll know why. I'll save it here. But so the door could be opening. I think we've seen with SGC and even some of the other non-PSA, non-Beckett, that price difference is that gap's closed a little bit, and the potential is for it to close even a little bit more. And so we'll see. I think sure, they have the hold on that number one position, but I don't think it's a given that it always can be that way no matter what they do. I think some of the things they decide to do will be important. All right, we got Drew, so I'm going to bring Drew on. He must have something to say. What's up, man?
What's going on, guys?
What's up, Drew?
Oh, live look at the basement.
What's going on, right? Not the basement, but little area. But no, I just wanted to stop in. Awesome show tonight. Yamwax, welcome. Nice to finally officially get to meet you, semi face to face. But just a couple things real quick. What you guys were talking on, and then I just want to say one thing to everybody out there watching. As far as the term, like, are we in the junk slab era? I don't know if I hate using the word junk in it. I hate the junk wax era term. Like, I don't like associating that with it, although you could make a strong case for the junk wax. I just think we're in the slab era. Like, slabs have always been around, but I think we're just in the era of slabs. I think that that's just going to be the norm going forward quite a bit. And I think that pop reports are going to be more important than anything. I think things where it's an automatic silver prism is the card you want, that might not be the case in 10 years for that player, because you could end up with a hyper that has a pop report of 30 or a pop report of 100, and then a silver that has a pop report of 20,000. So I think, pop reports are going to come into play more than ever now. Especially when it comes in terms of what cards, go up, what cards are considered, is the Zion, devalued because of how many there are. We'll find out. That was a very interesting stat that did come out. But
Drew, whoa! Are you telling me that pop reports matter?
Yeah. Yes. Surprisingly, pop reports do matter. I think it's been a long time since we've really dealt with pop reports or anything like that, or it's even really. I don't think we've ever been in a time grading wise where we needed them to matter. But now I think with the way the industry, because I don't really want to call it just a hobby anymore, but the way the industry is. That you've got to look at that stuff. If you're going to assign value to graded cards and graded parallels, pop reports got to come into play at some point in time when you're coming into these big sales, I think. So I think that's where that's one of the biggest increases that we're going to see, is that pop reports, I think, are going to matter a whole lot more than they ever have before. And if I'm a collector taking stuff long term, I'm looking at that stuff now. Like I'm taking a look at it now, and I'm looking at the trends this second, not waiting a long time, because if you're in it for the investing side of things, that this could be your moment. I mean, there's
That's
a lot
a bad word to some right there, Drew. You just said a bad word. Not to me, but to some.
Yeah, well, they can take it with a grain of salt.
Drew, your first comment was so spot on, though, like about saying that are we in a junk slab era, or not even focusing on the junk, or that we're actually just in a slab era. And I think that's right. Like, I think if you look at when you go into a card shop, what do you have? Rows and rows of singles that you can just sort through all day. And I love to do it. I love to sort through them. But you know what it's going to be in 5 years? It's going to be the same thing, but you're going to go clink, 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 clink. And who cares if you can buy some for $1.50? If you want the Clinton Portis of today that costs 50 cents in the cardboard box right now, if you clink to the whoever it is today that's not going to work out, like, cool, collect that person, and we'll still have fun. It'll just be a different medium.
I mean, the way I look at it is it's going to be like, like those dollar bin for slabs and things along those lines are going to be the 5, 6s, and 7s of cards, where collectors, like true collectors, they're looking after those guys. If I'm going after PC guys, I could care less about the grades. I'm not selling it. I'm never selling it. Like my personal collection, I'm a diehard collector and do this as a business. But my collection is something I'm not selling. Like it's something I'm getting, so I could care less about the grade. But the fact that it's in case, cool. I'd grab it, and I think you're dead on. I think that's what you're gonna see, and so I don't want to call. I don't, and I hate. It's what made me want to call in at this point in time was just the junk slab. The attaching the word junk on it, I think devalues what we're trying to value. And I don't like attaching the word to it. I just think we're in that slab era. So I just wanted to come on and say that real quick. It's our 100th episode, Hobby Hotline. So I just wanted to, John, I know you're on as a host. I especially wanted to call in because, a little while back, I talked with, shout out to Rob Bertrand to Go GTS, who spoke with me and kind of gave me this idea and told me to talk to Newman and run with it. And so I talked to John, and John's been a major driving force in keeping this going and everything, and keeping everything straight. And Hobby Hotline's evolved into something I don't think any of us that started this ever could have imagined it being, and it's only going to get bigger. But I want to say a special thanks to all the co-hosts, but a very, very special thanks to all you guys that watch the show. Because without you guys watching, without the subscribers, we wouldn't be doing the show anymore. Quite honestly, I mean, if nobody watched, what would we be doing here? We'd be talking to air. So thank you guys so much for tuning in for 100 episodes, and hopefully you like over time, and hopefully you continue to and watch the show and enjoy the awesome new cast of characters we have, just like tonight with Adam and Yamwax here. But I won't take up too much of your time, guys. Just wanted to jump in and say hey. But y'all have a good one, and happy 100th Hobby Hotline.
Yeah, thanks. You too, Drew. Thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely. Y'all have a good evening.
You too,
man.
All right, I took the banner off the screen, but I don't know if it's meant as maybe it does have a sort of a negative connotation, but I think it's another way to say a lot instead of saying a lot of slabs, right? I still PC them, I still sell them, I still buy them. It's just that's the way the hobby's going. There's a couple comments while we were all talking I want to definitely get to and kind of backtrack a little bit here. Ian Undercover corrected me on the $300, and then he said Nat stated in recent weeks that they absolutely want to get where they were $10 a card. Now I'll be shocked if that ever happens again. I think the $10 PSA days are over. I'd be happy with that because I listen. Who doesn't want to save money and get if you're integrated cards and get it at that price level? I think I'd be stunned to see it go back to $10. I think those days are in the rearview mirror, but I'm not Nat, I'm not PSA, so only they know for sure. Here's another one. And this goes to Yam's upcharges, right? PSA incentivizes giving higher grades and taking their time doing it as they stand to make more. What else? Where else is that an acceptable business practice? They don't give refunds if the value decreases. Yeah, and that's why I said it should be when you sub the card, right? Whatever the kind of the market is on that player, that card, when you sub it is where that if there's going to be upcharges, which I don't like to begin with, but can't fight City Hall, right? Then it should be where when you submitted it. You know, they almost benefit by keeping, especially with Bowman and prospects. You really can't lose if you're them, because the card can really only go up if you're sending in a guy that's maybe a year away or 2 years away, and it takes them that long to grade the card.
I also think that the business model of the grading of something and then that thing that you're sending in then costing more, or reselling for more, I guess I think it's unique to the collectibles in general. So whether it's magazines or comics or sports cards, so it's tough, obviously when we don't like those charges, but it's, PSA is doing us a service that's in some cases tripling and quadrupling the value of something by not spending that difference in the money that you're buying and getting it graded and then you're selling it. So, I agree that the business model can be flawed at times where with the upcharges, but I just think it's such a unique circumstance that it's like, I can see how people can complain, but at the same time, in my opinion, like the service that's being offered is so much more valuable than actually they're really even charging. Like I know that's kind of a take that I've had for a while, is that I think it should be a little bit more. I think if they were able to figure out a way to tier the pricing, not based on how long it takes to get graded, like the type of card that you're sending in, because like you said, sets, and there's people who want the full 2020 Topps flagship set. They want that full set graded. If you're sending in a Mike Trout, or if you're sending in like a Mookie Betts or something along those lines, if you want that graded, you shouldn't be having to pay the same amount as like a Zion Prism rookie or like Luka Prism rookie. Like I think figuring out a way to divide the business model into tiers of cards that you're sending in rather than time, that's how I would do it. I don't run PSA. PSA is almost $1 billion company at this point, so like I'm sure they're making decisions at $1 billion level rather than kind of me, I guess. But I just think that would be something that would help collectors and people who are trying to grade and flip as well.
Yeah, there's got to be a happy medium, like you said, Adam. There's got to be a better way. When you get a lot of complaints, that usually is an indication that there's a better way, or that we can fix some things. Eric, I'm not going to put Eric said, I didn't know you were anti-PSA, John. I'm actually not anti. I most of my slabs are PSA or SGCs with some Beckett's mixed in there, mostly older ones. So I'm not anti-PSA. I want the best service at the best price. So I don't agree with all their policies, upcharges being one. I'm not anti-PSA. I got PSA slabs that I bought that are on their way to me right now. So I'm not. I just want you can like a company and not agree with everything they're doing. So that's where I'll say I am with them. And Eric says, hey, I'm not a fan of Pop Reports because he's a collector. And then you got down here this, where's Logan's comment? Logan says, well, I can't find it, but Logan said Pop Reports matter. So Logan's going to start a group called Pop Reports Matter. But
John, that's an important comment. I think that we should discuss for a bit. Like do pop reports matter if you're a collector? And I don't know. To me, they do. I think of myself as a collector by and large,
There we go.
But
Yeah.
yeah, pop reports have always mattered to some degree. That's true. But pop reports matter as a collector to me because, I do want some mass-produced cards. There's some cards that I definitely want to get. I have I have some mass-produced 80s cards, Bonds, McGuire, et cetera, and I just wanted to have one. And I checked that. It's an easy box to check. I guess some people have different budgets and whatnot, but for me, I was able to pick up a $5 card just to have a raw one. But if I wanted those graded, I want to find out, hey, where do they break down? Like, is it a fun challenge to try to get a 10? Is it something I should try to flip up into? And that matters to me. Or other cards, like if I'm looking at Zion's cards, like maybe I do want the base and I just want to work towards that and spend a couple $100 or whatever to get that. And I don't know what it's at right now. But I also want to say, like, hey, what are some cards that are low pop that would be great to add to my checklist too? Maybe there's some of those that aren't even that expensive. If you really dive into pop reports, it's a fun thing to do as a collector to say, what are interesting cards of Zion's that the rest of the market hasn't recognized yet, but actually are really low pop, that I can create a checklist of to create a collection?
I think humans are curious by nature, right? You kind of want to see where your inventory fits in the grand scheme of things, I'm probably more interested in the pop report myself when I get a 10 back than when I get an 8. I almost kind of don't want to know. Truth be told, but yeah, sure, we're curious. Like, hey, when you get that 10 or even a higher grade on a vintage card, let's say maybe it's even a 5 or 6 or 7 on a vintage card, which is a very good grade depending on what year and what card you're talking about. You kind of want to see how many of these are there. If you're a show dealer like I am, I used to be a store owner, but doing shows now, you sort of want to get the feel of the landscape where this card sets in. If I sold this and I wanted to get it again and replace it, either the keep again or resell another one, you kind of want to know what that replacement cost might be as well. And I think knowing what's out there, it starts right there, right? Everything is supply and demand. That's not even a card thing. That's just an economics thing. So I like population reports. I think it keeps, that it's nice to know that there's half a jillion Zion Prism graded cards, right? It's still, listen, if he becomes a Hall of Famer and a superstar and an all-star every year, that Prism rookie is still going to be a great card, raw or graded, right? But either case, no matter how many there are. So I think population reports are good. I get where some, like Eric says, hey, listen, I'm collecting the cards. If there's 10,000 of these graded or 10 of them graded, I still love this card. I get that aspect too. Can't argue that. That's an opinion. But for me, that's kind of a little bit of everything. Like Drew said, I sell, I buy, and I PC. I can make an excuse why I want to check the pop report in all those hats that I would wear there as well.
I'll add one other point. I think also people all over the hobby just collect for different reasons. Yeah. So, for example, like Yams was saying, like somebody might just want to buy the Zion Prism because they just want that card, or somebody may want to buy some sort of like rare, 70s or 80s card that I guess would be perceived as rare if it has a low population. It may or may not necessarily be rare because maybe just no one sent it in. But I just think that collectors overall, they all want to collect for different reasons. And I think population is one way to distinguish between like if a card is, I guess if a card is rare or if it's not rare, like, we all know that the Prism Zion rookie is not a rare card, but like, if somebody's buying some other card, like that doesn't have a high population, I think someone in the chat mentioned too, like low population doesn't necessarily mean that it's rare. It may just mean that it doesn't have as high a demand. So I guess I kind of look at it that way. And I think, it just comes down to what someone wants to buy if they're a collector, like, because collecting, that's one of the great things about this hobby is just that, like, there's something for almost anybody who wants to get in if they're looking to kind of spend the time and learning everything.
It's kind of like buying a house, right? When you're buying a house, you want to know what are the property values in this area? What are houses selling for in this area? Because why? You don't want if the median price is $150,000, you know, you don't want to overpay for the house you're interested in, and you want to see maybe you can even get potentially a deal. Housing market's not a great example for deals. Here's another point from Jason, which I agree with. I'll see what you guys think. He says pop reports are the reason the 90s inserts increased so rapidly. Figuring out which cards will be popular in the future based on pop reports are the trick for holds, and obviously seeing how many exist. You know, the pop reports also can give you an indication of which kind of those inserts. There's just not a lot. Not a lot of too, because you know everyone, you know, especially before the prices went up, everything was getting sub, and so those pop reports then would tell you there's just not a lot of these because it's 10, you know, it's 10, $15 to submit a card, and yet there's only 10 of these submitted and graded. So you kind of, it lets the cat out of the bag, so to speak. And with some of those, you guys notice with some of those 90s inserts, we kind of thought they were short printed, but we never really knew officially. It wasn't like today where we have a lot of card detectives kind of breaking down case numbers, and if there's cards numbered to 100, there's this many boxes produced, and crunching all these numbers. So some of those 90 inserts flew under the radar for many moons until pop reports. I'm not saying they're the only reason, but a huge reasons why some of those were kind of discovered. Like there's just not a lot of these, period. So we're going to bring in Brad here. Go ahead, Rambo.
I was going to say, shout out to those card detectives that are out there, you know, digging up that data and trying to flesh out how many are out there. Because I find something really romantic about the non-numbered short print cards where we really don't know the exact number, but after a number of decades, you feel pretty confident that a lot of the potential graded supply has already been graded. And, you know, as opposed to knowing, okay, there's exactly 99 of this card, that we think there's somewhere between 18 and 50. I really kind of love those cards personally, but it takes a while for the market to catch up to them. At first, people really fall for the manufactured rarity or the numbered rarity until they find out how short printed something really is. And that can take many years to do. But that those 90s inserts are kind of like a mini case study into how much pop reports do matter to collectors, whether we like it or whether you like it or not. You know, your housing you know, analogy was interesting, you know, and you said that a house, you know, you look at the property values. Well, I think you also, some people do look at the rarity or the special features of that house, right? Like where, you know, some people want bragging rights, like, oh, I have the only house that has like a clear skyline view, or, you know, in my neighborhood or whatever it is, right? Like some people are like that, and other people are just like, hey man, I'm just so happy I have a garage. My last two houses didn't, and I just love that. Everybody in this neighborhood has a garage, but that works for me, and that's what's cool about, like, hey, what is special? Why is this card special to you? It varies to all of us and where we are in our collecting and life journeys. So it's kind of like that with the house too. So
hey, my toilet bowl has a water fountain. Check this thing out. Do you have one of those? I actually don't. I just, it's a bidet for those who want to know. And no, I don't have a bidet, but I thought it'd be funny to talk about it. So there you go. All right, Brad, I made you wait here while we were what do you got to say?
So many bidet jokes you don't even know that are coming your way, brother. You don't even know. I wanted to jump on. I'm on my way home saying, number one, 100th episode. Thank you, all your watchers. Thank you for everybody just supporting and being with us, and you know, just watching and liking and subscribing and putting up with me. That's, there you go. Putting up with me is a good one. Shout out to Jason. Shout out to Logan. Pop reports do matter. And dude, John, the hobby is the people, but John Newman is now the official Hobby Hot Tub, Hobby Bidet spokesperson.
I don't have a bidet. Like, here's a question. If I wanted to get one put in, I don't. Where the heck do you go for something? Like, who do you call for that? That like
I don't know. You tell me. I barely knew what a bidet was before you even mentioned the word. I had to look it up. So I don't know what a bidet is.
I know I went. It was many years ago. I went to someone's house, and they had one, and I didn't use it. But I'm like, what is this? I used it after I was kind of like I turned it. I'm like, holy smokes! It's a water fountain in the toilet bowl, And I
But
figured
did you
out
drink
what
the
it
water? Is the question. Did you
I guess
use
if
the
you
water?
listen, if you're thirsty and it's a chance, it's a choice for I'm going to dehydrate or drink some bidet water. All right, this show is we're getting off the
It's
rails.
gonna.
So
It's gonna. All right, but I just wanted to say thanks y'all for your support. All the new guys. I thank you. You'll probably be annoyed by me at some point in time. Thank you for your support. I appreciate everybody. Pop reports matter, and I'm out. Have a great one.
thanks, Brad. And I also want to thank. I know Drew came on and thank those watching. I also want, and I didn't do this, exclude anyone on purpose. Anyone that downloads the show and listens to it in audio as well. You're still taking time out of your day. There's what now 1 million hobby podcasts now, I believe, or 900 something thousand we're up to. So the fact that you're downloading this show and like the content, thank you for doing that as well. And I'm one of them. We got a few ugly people, not today, just me, but on certain other days we have some other ones. Brad just left; he probably qualifies to. You may not want to see us, so you can at least listen to the audio and spare the horror, if you will. But let's stop talking about bidets and ugly people like myself. But pop reports. I guess it's the whole thing, kind of bringing that one to if you don't like them, you don't have to look them up. That's the beauty in them. You don't have to go there and click on that link and see them. And if you do like them, you know where to find them. I think they're important though, just to kind of gauge where the hobby's at. How many of these exist in graded form, at least with this company? Mike Moynihan last week on this show talked about something I'd love to see. I think it's going to happen. It's going to, we got a lot of smart people, but a pop report of all graded cards, instead of just, go to PSA and get their pop report, but someone who does the data scrape, the aggregate, that's above anything I can do. But someone that knows what they're doing, that can get really talk about an assessment of graded cards across all the different graded companies. That'll get you. Then you'll have a real number to, and you kind of did that, Adam, with the Zion, talking about how many were graded by you. But imagine you do that with just almost any card. Then you get a real lay for the land and where the hobby's at, or where a particular card is at. And again, if you don't like pop reports, it doesn't make you a bad guy or a bad lady. Just that's not your thing. Like Eric is one of the greatest people in the hobby. He doesn't need the pop report to whatever floats your boat, as I like to say. So we'll see. Ian thinks that PSA is going to be $10 a card again, based on a comment from Nat Turner. I'd love to see it. Gun in my head, and I had to predict that's going to happen or not going to happen. We'll say no. I think the $10 days are, as much as I like them, I think those days are done.
Can I say that the naming of the lower tiers of PSA's grading tiers are almost as confusing as Starbucks coffee sizes? We don't have any ventis in there, but I feel like the last couple of weeks have been really confusing for people as they heard regular is going to open back up again. The Facebook comments were filled with people saying like, "Oh, PSA is about to face the avalanche. Why is PSA taking bulk or value again when it's when they already have millions of cards to grade?" And guys, regular is not bulk or value. But still, like, even those terms are interchangeable. Most people say value, but some say bulk. And when we talk regular, we're talking about, I think, the third lowest tier, right? The second lowest is economy, and then you have value or bulk. It just gets kind of confusing.
Yeah, I like to simplify it. And then what you make a great point. Sometimes they even change what it's called. Like Midge, hey, it's called this now. Like, well, it was this, and now I'm confused. Well, and now, and listen, there's no hardly any guaranteed turnaround times unless you're paying three-figure prices. So you can't base it on, hey, it's 30-day turnaround time anymore, because those days are gone unless you're paying that higher level price. So yeah, I think they need to simplify that. Don't make it, you got to be a rocket scientist to figure out what level you need to submit on. Tom says you talked about the snail level. There you go. That could encompass more than one level, though. So, then and then you have a voucher level. So we could have a lot of fun with these Collectors Club specials level. So, but yeah, I like to see things get. That's the thing. I'm not anti PSA. I just want to see things get better. And the more stuff goes up in the hobby, right? It just becomes sort of that elitist part of the hobby, which is an important part. These $1 million auctions, and they are an important part of the hobby. But when that's the only thing we're talking about, I don't necessarily think that's a good thing either. I think that there's a lot of ways to hobby, from looking in a box for quarter cards to these $1 million, golden and heritage auctions too. They're all a part of the hobby, but I like that balance, and including submission level prices.
John, I look at WADA, who recently was acquired by Collectors Universe, PSA's parent company, and they almost go to the other tier, the snail tier. That almost all of their tiers sound like they're going to happen overnight. You have Turbo, which is 150 business days, so actually kind of slow. Then Speed Run, and then finally Warp Zone. We're taking the Millennium Falcon to another galaxy.
I was just thinking like Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, something like that.
Yeah, but that's like 18 business days still, and I hear all these levels are kind of delayed beyond that, just like everything else is in grading. But there's slow tiers called Select, and I know just like PSA, those are taking a year plus for many people. So it's kind of crazy in the video game grading world too.
All right, I think any kind of closing thoughts on grading. I mean, we covered it for about 50 minutes here. I want to get to a couple other things before we kind of close up shop for today. But I don't want to. If you have something else to add, I don't want to stop you. Any kind of closing thoughts?
I think we covered pretty much everything that I was thinking about it too. So I'm good with grading.
All right.
I just say, like, there's something about a graded slab that just feels right, to have a card and put it in a PSA flip or a SGC flip or a BGS or whatever, that to have that secured, safe, to be able to see your number grade, have it presented in nice clear plastic. This form factor, having it all fit really well into the big shoe boxes. Like, I do really enjoy collecting cards and slabs. And so we've ripped on, I think, a lot of the concerns around grading, but ultimately, like, the market says we want our cards graded, and I personally feel that. And so, there's a positive angle to that too, that when you get them back, it's really special.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it again, and as well as the other hosts as well. So let's get into baseball. I know the season's over, but that's sort of what this next topic is. Baseball hobby off-season tips. I've said, and I'm sure you guys will agree, some of the best times to get the best deals on whatever sport. We're talking about baseball because it's the off-season now for that. Is now, right? The off season, out of sight, out of mind. People kind of forget about it. Prices do come down, and I do a lot of, I used to open a lot more Bowman, and then that price jumped. And what I do now with Bowman, you mentioned prospecting, Yam, is I buy this time of year on some of those young guys that haven't popped yet, if you will, and that I think are going to. And it's a great time to buy. I get a lot of questions in this area. Another thing is, obviously it's the off season, but if it's in season, when a guy, Lewis Robert got hurt, and everyone jumped off that ship like it was on fire. And I believe in the guy, so that was the perfect time for me to buy even some more, and I had quite a bit. And because we got a thing in the hobby, someone gets hurt and it's like the world's coming, like their career's over. Not every injury is career threatening or career ending, but we always act, or the hobby always acts like it potentially is. That's a great time to buy. Off season's great time to buy. Singles to me will always be, listen, nothing beats the feeling of opening packs up. I'm not going to argue that. I lose that argument. But you at the end of the day, I used to open a lot more, and the older I got, I realized it's probably better just to buy some of this stuff and other people's losses, so to speak, on wax than to open it myself. So I open a lot less now. I still open. I don't want to make it sound like I'm cold turkey with opening wax, but the off season for any sport, but we're talking about baseball because right now it's baseball off season. I will say this: be careful. If you follow baseball, you know that there is a impending work stoppage potentially looming. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but there are pundits that are saying they'd be shocked that we don't have some form of work stoppage. For how long, we don't know. But what I say, that buys you more time to buy some more baseball cards, right? Because then it just extends the downtime. So that's some things I do is a lot of singles in the off season. Maybe a guy that had a bad year, but you believe like, hey, he just had a bad year. That's not who he is long term. He just had a bad year. He'll come back. And I do that too with certain guys. And then you look at certain other guys, right? One guy that comes to mind in baseball is Aristides Aquino for the Reds, right? He had that great stretch, and everyone was, either buying him or selling him. And I'm kind of like, this guy's a little older, and I don't see this long term, and sold quite a bit of him. And we kind of, he still could come back, who knows when, but doesn't look like he's going to be what he played for 3 months there, and so you got to make all those decisions. Sometimes you're wrong, sometimes you're right. I always say, if you're right 6 or 7 out of 10 times, you'll kind of come out ahead, right? It's like, sort of
You'd
like
be one of the best
gambling.
baseball players of all time if
Yeah.
you were 6 or 7 out of 10.
And that's where I try to be with some of the guys that I buy. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. When you're wrong, you can't let it sort of affect you. You got to keep, doing what you want to do and get back on the horse. And be quick. Be careful not to be too quick. We saw Jared Kelenic come up. First game, he hits a home run, and then he goes into like this 0 for 40 slump. And everyone says, oh, my God, he's terrible. Get rid of him. And then if you watch the last 2-3 weeks of the season, he looked like what a lot of people thought he would. So again, and then everyone's trying to get those cards back. So be careful being too quick to get rid of a guy or jump off the ship, as I like to say. But I've kind of rambled on it. Yeah, I know you prospect with baseball. Go ahead, and then Adam as well. But go ahead, Yam. Oh, I think you're on mute.
I prospect on a lot of things, but I would say baseball is not one of my major areas. So rely on Adam. The one thing I will say, though, guys, is that, pay attention to the market's movements, because yes, consistently we see dips in these off seasons, but the basketball and football markets have proven that there can be erratic behavior as the market has shifted and changed so much. So that's watch the data and make your decisions based on that. The other thing is, I think it just speaks the off-season investors. It's a great approach, or a guy that you like that had a bad season, thinking of all those things. Because to me, just like everyone else, I get the most excited about the niches that I'm in when someone's hot. I get FOMO just like everyone else, and I try to always. I'm ready to go buy it now. I'm going to go pick up the hottest prospect right now. Let's say I'm a Wolves fan, so I might want to pick up an Anthony Edwards. But I'm like, hold up. Right now might not be the best moment to buy it because the season's just kicking off. Everybody's excited about Anthony Edwards. Like, maybe I'll get that pullback moment. Maybe, whatever happens in his career. Of course, 1 out of 4 times they never go down. But that's me. I like to take a breath from the FOMO, wait for off seasons, or wait for whatever that player's dip is going to be, and try to buy into those opportunities because you can't buy everything.
Yeah, I mean, I have basically three things that I'm sort of thinking about when I'm thinking about baseball. Like, it's such a unique sport because right now, baseball is in its off season. It's going to be in its off season, but like without a work stoppage. It's the spring training's right around the corner. Like, spring training is in like February. Also, baseball is unique in a way that it's the only sport that has an off season right now, which I think is why maybe we're seeing some cycles where, if you're looking at football or basketball or hockey, even all those off seasons are essentially all happening at the same time. Also, one of the like kind of peak things getting back into motion for baseball is during the NFL postseason. So, that's another reason why people aren't thinking as much about baseball. I also think that it's just you have to look at it much more long-term than most sports, because, if you're buying Wellman, or even if you're buying like rookies, for example, if Trevor Story, I think it's Trevor Story and Aquino are two kind of parallels in a way where they both came up, they had these ridiculous starts to the start of their career. Like, I think I'm pretty sure they're like 1 and 2 in terms of most home runs in the first 10 games or something along those lines. And then you kind of look at what happened with Trevor Story. He sort of didn't really progress as quickly as people expected him to. But like, now you look at him and he didn't progress kind of from like 2012, 2013, 2014. I think his Bowman is from 2012. And then I forget which his rookie was from. But like, he didn't really progress as quickly as maybe people expected. But like, now he's one of the best shortstops in the National League. So you kind of got to look at those cycles. And then the last kind of thing that I'm thinking about with baseball right now is like, this will be the first real off season for some of these players. Like, yes, they had the off season last year, but that was only after playing 60 games. So I'm seeing, at least from my standpoint, like all of these sports are kind of going through their first real full season cycles. So, for baseball, things may be a little bit different. Like, there's people who, if they got into sports cards in 2020, they didn't experience a full baseball season of collecting cards, and then which they did for a full off season back into the sport this year, but they only played 60 games. So like, maybe a player didn't get as much wear on their body, an older player or something along those lines. So, for baseball, those are kind of my main takeaways when I'm thinking about buying baseball. And the one big is just that it's like, it's much more long-term, I think, than people expect, especially because of sort of how flipping and the market has become so much more fast-paced. People don't want to get into baseball. They want to get into more basketball because it's a lot quicker of, if a ball comes out of nowhere, or a Taylor Horton Tucker has like one game, his cards jump like 500%. But like with baseball, that doesn't exactly happen as much, and I guess there's that kind of aspect to it too.
Yeah, it's a great the game itself. And I'm a baseball. I played baseball. I still play men's competitive softball. You make a great point, Adam. The game itself is 3 hours long. You know what I mean? It's a slow paced game. It's why some people don't like it. The season's
162 games in a season,
162 games of 3 hours, about each one of those. If you're a fan of a team, you're putting in a lot of time. I think there's a lot of people, truth be told, in the hobby aren't watching games. They're looking at box scores and trends, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. It's legal. I'm a baseball fan. I got into cards because I was a baseball fan first, and that led into cards. But I think in today's sort of hobby, it's almost the other way around. Not 100%. Something that happened today I want to kind of touch on too with baseball is be careful, with contracts, right? Wander Franco got paid today a lot of money. Now, Wander Franco may be the next Mike Trout for all we know, and I hope he is, right? But don't, just because someone gets paid by the Brinks truck backing up, that doesn't again, great example. It doesn't guarantee performance. It's an indicator what the team feels about him long term. But injuries can happen. Guys can fall short of expectations and hype. And so just, we see it all the time. Someone gets paid like Wander Franco today, and all the postings come out and the for sale list, and I'm looking for them, which is fun. That's great. Buy and do whatever you want. Just, be careful there, because just the fact the contract doesn't equal, just because they're getting paid doesn't mean you're going to get paid for buying them all up as well. So, just tread a little lightly there as well. And,
I also just think with the cycling kind of thing that I was talking about, like, we're going into a period where Wander Franco isn't a prospect anymore. Like, anybody who got back into sports cards in 2020, from 2020 and 2021, Wander Franco was the number one prospect. Even in 2019, when his Bowman came out, he was the guy that people were chasing in that 2019 Bowman product. So, like, now we're moving into an era after a 3-year era where, like, the guy has become sort of the guy that everyone expected to become the guy is, I'm going to use it again, the guy, I guess. But, like, then you look at maybe a player like Byron Buxton, for example. Like, he was the number one prospect for, I think, just as long as Wander Franco is. And he had a good season this year, but he didn't pan out to be the next Mike Trout. And he's kind of maybe a little bit of an outlier. If you look at a lot of the number one prospects in baseball, I think the hit rate on that is pretty high. Like, Buxton is probably one of the guys, but just we know it can happen. And that's, I think, another thing to be careful of when you're looking at prospects, I guess.
Yeah, great points, Adam. Go ahead.
There's a couple things in the chat here. In the chat, shout out to the chat. The chat's really on fire.
Yeah, here's one, Yam, and I want to kind of, it's a great question from Cards with Luke. He says, what stat you guys looking at the most? WAR, etc. WAR is wins over replacement. That's a great stat for a real life GM when they're trying to put their team together. I'm not saying it doesn't have any hobby significance. So I'll be quick about this. And I know, Yam, you got a couple comments you want to highlight. For me, when I prospect on baseball, guys, I love 5-tool guys, or guys that can be as close to 5-tool, that can do a little of everything. Steal bases, hit for power, hit for average, driving some runs, play some defense. Because those are the guys that are going to have probably the longer careers in general, right? And the longer you're up, the more damage you can potentially do and figure things out. And your coaching staff can work on some stuff. And the other thing I do is I think the mistake some people make, especially when you prospect with really young players, is you look at rookie and single A stats and they tear it up. They're like, man, this guy's a Hall of Famer already. Be careful. There's a lot of bad pitchers at rookie level and single A that will never even see double or triple A themselves. And so the first time I really, other than, the draft and they're hyped and the scouting report coming out of college or high school, that's one thing. But as far as once they get into minor league system, the first level I really look at, and if they do it on that level, I say, now I'm a little more sold on this double A. Because when you get to double A, you're facing more guys that may be long-term and potential big leaguers themselves when we're talking about hitters here. And same thing in reverse with pitchers. They're now facing more major league caliber potential batters in that batter's box. And so I look at a double A season stat line, and I'm going to put more credence. Sometimes even more than triple A, because a lot of times at triple A, you got some aging veterans or aging minor leaguers just collecting a paycheck, trying to hang on. We've seen a lot of those, and I don't put too much credence. That double A, because that's where a lot of your bonus babies start out, and a lot of your big time higher draft pick pitchers sometimes will start there, and that's kind of the first level. I can't tell you how many times you hear the guy tearing up single A, and then you follow him or keep tabs on him or buy some of his cards. And, next year or towards the end of that year or the next year, they're at double A and they're batting 175 with a couple home runs, and they never make it. So double A is kind of for me, for the 2 cents, that's where I really start to say, all right, this guy could be what a lot of the scouts are saying.
Well, I was going to add, a little swag doesn't hurt either with some of these guys,
Yeah.
especially in today's culture. We had a comment above that said, card good doesn't necessarily mean, or real life good doesn't necessarily mean card good when it comes to how we evaluate people. And there's different ways to measure guys, as you guys are talking about. One of those ways is how much do they appeal to people in culture, especially in a culture where we have live replays that get shared and spread out, and you hit a dinger and you spin a medallion in the dugout. That gets a lot of shares and a lot of eyeballs and a lot of excitement, enthusiasm for that player. So layering that on top. But then we have guys like Mike Trout that aren't that swaggy, and they still are so great that it transcends that appeal. But one thing I wanted to say, and a question I had, maybe you guys could answer, because I have no data on this, but I'd be really curious to hear. So we have Card Killer in the chat talking about Griffey and asking everybody to stay off of his Griffey cards that he's trying to win auctions on. The great artist Card Killer. Again, this chat is awesome. And then I've a couple comments about Mantle, like, hey, you can't go wrong buying Mantle, right? But let's not say 52 Mantle. Let's just say vintage. Do these vintage cards, whether vintage or nostalgia cards, like 80s, 90s cards, do they move? Do they decline in the off seasons too? Anyone else?
Yeah, we've seen a dip in vintage. Now there are some vintage players, if you will, that are sort of dip proof or market correction proof, if you will. One of the guys I love and collect, unfortunately, fits that description in Jackie Robinson. No matter what happens in the market, his cards never go down. Believe me, I look and scratch my head while certain other guys. Mantle, I'd probably put in that category, but some of the other ones, again, I keep referring to Mike Moynihan because he has heavy PSA and he's heavy vintage. And I had him on my show, and we were talking about the modern kind of card correction. He's like, John, and he pulled up a graph. He goes, this is happening in vintage too. Believe me, I track my stuff. These are my cards. And some of these are big time cards that have dropped 20, 30%. So I'll use his stat. Yeah, it happens. But he'll tell you, certain guys are sort of immune to that. Jackie Robinson, Mickey Mantle, some of those type guys. And obviously your iconic cards, and then your pre-wars with Ty Cobb and those cards that are just so in demand, they're not going to be affected by any kind of dip or drop. So it happens. It's a great, and I always say this: vintage is still one of the great areas you can buy some great deals. When you look at an Aaron Judge auto rookie that goes for $2,500, and nothing against Aaron Judge. But a lot of people kind of feel he's just his frame. He's not going to have a super great, super long career. Some people say because he plays on the Yankees, he gets extra credit. There's a lot of stuff I could buy with $2,500 on the vintage side of the house. Rookies, graded rookies of Hall of Famers that to me are just better for me to spend my $2,500 rather than an Aaron Judge autograph. And I used him, for example. I don't want to just pick on him. There's other guys as well. He was just kind of the first name that sort of popped into my head. And he's a good, very good player. But how long can he do it for? He's already shown sort of missing time each year. And if you ask me, John, you can have that $2,500 Aaron Judge rookie auto, or you can have an Ernie Banks graded rookie. Probably gonna go with the Ernie Banks graded rookie given the choice. So you gotta look at that. Now some people just, hey, I don't want to do vintage, right? I don't know those guys. I didn't grow up watching them. I don't have that connection to them. I get that. I can't argue that. We're kind of a product of our environment, but I've seen a lot more kids at the shows, guys, like buying players, and not just baseball and other sports as well, basketball, football, of guys that were not in their era. I'm seeing 17-year-old kids buy Joe Namath cards or Gale Sayers cards or Wilt Chamberlain cards, and they didn't watch them play. They know about them because they're historic players, and I love seeing that because I say, well, one of two things, right? Either this young person is just a fan of the game so much that he cares about the players that came before, the ones he knows in real time, or it may be simple as, hey, I can sell this later on for more. But either way, just the fact that we're seeing young people kind of go back and not just collect today's players too. I always enjoy seeing that when it happens.
And one other point too, going back to prospecting a little bit, is just I think one area that I look at is farm system and ability to develop prospects. I mean, if you look at the White Sox, their whole team is all homegrown talent. Or you look at, you could look at the Devil Rays is another example. Like, you look at the amount of players that are coming out of these systems. And I even think the one thing that's interesting that the Devil Rays did is that, or an interesting statistic actually, since 2018, the Devil Rays have the they have the lowest payroll in the league, but they had the fourth best record. So you look at that means they're developing prospects and they're getting people for cheap, kind of like Billy Beane did with Moneyball. And the fact that they're willing to, break the bank, like back up the Brinks truck for Wander Franco. I wonder if that is a good thing or a bad thing. Like, are they overlooking maybe some of his flaws and looking at his potential and saying, we haven't done this in 10 years. Like, let's just do it and get this player now, and we'll have him for 10 years. But then, like I said, like, there's the White Sox, like with Andrew Vaughn, who's coming up. You have, Tim Anderson. You've got Jose Abreu. I mean, their whole roster a lot of their Yohan Moncada is another example. They traded for him, but he was the number one prospect when they traded for him. So, like, I put a lot of stock into how good the farm system is at developing players to get to the major league level.
Yeah, it's a great point. Team to watch along those lines, Adam, piggyback off what you said. I know when you look at the standings, they didn't have a great year, but they got guys coming. That's the Baltimore Orioles. I'm not saying they're going to win the division. They're in a tough division in the AL East. They got a lot of prospects. They made some trades where they traded some of those veteran guys like Chris Davis that were batting 170 and hitting 30 home runs, and got 2 or 3 prospects. They got guys we saw that produced last year in Montcastle and others, and they got more coming. So
Adley Rutschman, the number one prospect right now. I think Bobby Witt is probably going to be the number one prospect for the 2022 season. Adley Rutschman will probably be either 2 or 3, and Bobby will get jumped up to number 1. But yeah, like you said, Rutschman is obviously a good player, and I think that's kind of what I look at when I am viewing prospects. I think just one other thing, I guess, is with baseball, it's interesting. Like, a player like Buster Posey is one of the best modern day catchers of all time, or even maybe a Yadier Molina. Like, those guys are 2 of the best players of our generation, but they maybe don't get as much hobby love, I guess. Like, their numbers, their prices aren't as high as a player like Trout. I'm not saying they're as good as Trout, but like, I think it's just interesting that there are going to be certain players, for whatever reason, that people just don't gravitate towards when it comes to sports cards, even if they are some of the best players of their respective position and in their respective sports.
Yeah, and position, like catchers, you generally don't put up the number. That's why what Salvador Perez did in Kansas City this year is record setting. He did it so quietly too, like kind of snuck up on everybody. And a lot of his cards started to go up. Again, tread lightly. I mean, next year he could hit 22 home runs, bat 240, and we're going to forget about that monster year this year. You got to believe in the guy doing it more than 1 year. And there's still, I hate to say it, there's still some illegal use of substances going on, whatever they may be, and there's always something new coming along. So I always get nervous when I see a guy just all of a sudden have one of these like double years where he doubles everything, his previous career highs and everything. I'm not saying it's not legit, but it always makes me a little nervous, like what's going on here, But we'll see. It's fun. Where are we at time wise? An hour and 20 minutes. One more topic we want to cover. I'm going to let Yam, who spoke to Carvin Chung on this particular topic. It's a new product, and right up. I hate to, I'll say it right up Yam's alley. If you know anything about Yamwax, music cards are back. It's not the Yo MTV Raps and my Beastie Boys rookies, but go ahead.
Yeah, man. Well, music cards have a long tradition in the hobby, and so some exciting news just dropped today. What looks to be the beginning of a new initiative by, like you mentioned, Carvin Chung. His nickname is the Architect, famous on Clubhouse, of telling so many stories because Carvin has built epic brands in the hobby. Exquisite for Upper Deck, the Immaculate for Panini. And
the
Carvin
Cup for hockey too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he's been behind these iconic brands, and now he has started a new venture called the Infinite. The Infinite is the first drop today. It was a music card of The Weeknd. So today, Billboard announced that The Weeknd had his song "Blinding Lights" became the #1 song of all time on the Billboard 100. And it beat Chubby Checker of all people. So we're going back to vintage, just like we were going back to vintage sports cards and non-sport cards here. And so they released a series of cards. I think there's 5 different variations, but these come in short prints, numbered. They're all foil, I believe, full bleed, and there's some autos in there too. But it's he's throwing that out there. They put it at definitely a higher end collector price point for what looks like a higher end card. One card. You only get 1 card in a pack, and it's $100. So I don't believe it's sold out as of this moment, but it's been shared by Billboard, shared by the Weeknd's merch store, and lots of card collectors everywhere. So I'm excited for Carvin to start something new. This is going to be, he says, the first card among many music cards to come. And I think this is just sort of neat, whether it's, you look at it as like, okay, so someone's dropping music cards, entertainer cards, actor cards, whatever it is, for there to be a boutique trading card option. They can drop one-of-ones that is getting full licensing from the artists, creating their own art and their own brands that presumptively will be able to get graded. We're creating new brands in the hobby, but they might not make millions of cards. They may only make, Carvin's company might only make 35 cards in its entire history. I hope he makes hundreds and thousands of them in terms of individual releases. But we're seeing these micro brands. I just wonder if this is something that we'll see again, are micro brands creating cards just for one niche case.
Yeah, it's definitely the nice thing that's got going for you. You got the backing of Billboard, which is huge. I mean, you don't even have to be a music fan. You hear Billboard, it's a music charting service, and so the fact that they're involved, I think definitely gives credit. But not that Carvin needs. He's got his own built-in credibility, not take nothing away. But now adding Billboard to the mix definitely is gonna help. Do we know like when the next one comes? How often are we going to see new releases? Do we know any of that info at this point yet?
No, not that we know of. I feel like perhaps Carvin, could only share so much in advance. So we really got notice of this. And this might have come together quickly of this just a few days ago that he was even dropping anything, let alone, the Weeknd. We didn't find out until everybody found out from Billboard this morning. We didn't know who it was. He just gave some clues like, hey, it's going to be a top 5 artist today. It's going to be an artist that's performed at the Super Bowl before. And so he gave us a few little nuggets, but that only narrowed it down to like 25 potential artists, depending on who you think are the top 5 artists today. But there's no denying that the Weeknd has been huge, and his numbers, according to the Billboard charts, he's got the top song ever. Had a big Super Bowl show, and no, I think it's exciting. I bought a pack. I wish I could have bought many more, but just I picked up the one for now, and I see Card Killer jumped in. He said he got one today. I'm pretty excited about it too. I'm excited to open it. There can be base cards, but they get a foil, and I love Carvin's work, so I'm just excited to see what comes out of that pack. I'm excited to see what comes next. I don't know that this is going to be on like a certain release schedule, but I do hope that Billboard will continue to work with them, because it's really neat to have a brand like Billboard introducing not just non-sport to other trading card collectors, but to introduce cards to the music world. Because then maybe we pull in collectors who buy the weekend's card, buy the next drop, and they're like, "This is really cool!" Like, or they remember having cards as a kid, or they sort of back into trading cards. Maybe they start collecting non-sport, or maybe they actually get into sports cards too. So any of these, this exposure is tremendous for the hobby. The hobby meaning encompassing sports cards and non-sport. And like I said, music cards go way back. We've got, there's a 1959 Ray Charles card, which is just a gorgeous card. There's old entertainer cards, tobacco cards and stuff from the 20s and 30s. I know for sure that have entertainers on them. So it has this rich history of non-sport entertainer cards. And Panini, before they made sports cards, they made, of course, soccer cards back in the day, but they also issued a lot of stickers and cards, the Calciatori cards out of Europe through the late 60s, early 70s. And a lot of iconic rookie cards like Michael Jackson's card are in those late, Michael Jackson's rookie is as a member of the Jackson 5 in the late 60s. You've got ABBA, you've got all kinds of people in the 70s, Led Zeppelin, and Kiss, and so there's just like great non-sport cards. And then the 80s have the Panini Smash Hits cards, where you've got rookies of like Van Halen, and there's a 1979 Prince. And so there are these neat cards that a lot of us are now going back and chasing. A leader in the hobby, in a rising leader, and Josh Luber speaks really highly, and I personally know collects a lot of non-sport cards, and he's talking about possibly bringing more of that to Fanatics. And so,
well, that was my next question. How long till Fanatics buys the Infinite? So that's where you went where I was thinking, But I'm half kidding. Do you think, Yam? Do you think this helps some of those brands that you mentioned that are already out? You think it brings more attention to them? Like, hey, this is cool, but what has been made already that I can go back and acquire that too? You think that gets a kick from this new release?
I feel like it's already in motion, and this is more snow catching on to the snowball. Of course, I have the Prism. It's I don't know if it's just me that bought a Subaru and see Subarus everywhere type of thing, right? Or is it that I just feel like there's this zeitgeist and that's rising. Many other collectors I respect are at least dabbling a little bit in non-sport. You walk shows and you see non-sport cards showing up in cases more often, and so I think this is something that's already sort of gathering, and that probably I would guess sort of helped Carvin think it'd be cool to go in this direction. Josh Luber recently on Sports Cards Nonsense said that he definitely would like to see Fanatics offer non-sport cards, and they're thinking about those things. So this is in the air. And I think, maybe Carvin's taking advantage of that, or not taking advantage, but he's getting involved in that because he does love music and he's got a great music background. So it just fits for him to do this. But it's in the end, like trading cards are all about culture. We talk about how some of these cards, even though one player is better than the other, the one that's got more visibility, more swag, more interest and appeal end up getting collected more than others. And that's culture, and so we like collecting things on these little pieces of cardboard. And so why not, add an Eminem card or a Snoop Dogg card or a Warren Buffett card or, those types of things, because they're people that interest us and have appeal in culture, and we can add them to our collection. So we'll see where it goes. But the only way that I see it being additive in that way, though, John, would be bringing in net new collectors, guys who and women who haven't even thought about collecting and suddenly pick up the weekend card because they saw the weekend drop it or they saw Billboard mention it. And then they get into the hobby and they might go down the non-sport rabbit hole before they do sports. But I think it's just rolling.
I'm a huge music guy. I go to concerts. I follow, all the board. This came across my phone as a music story, not in any of my hobby related feeds. So this came across on the music side. So it's going to cover both ends. You're going to get your card coverage from it, and you're getting the music coverage too with the Billboard backing. And that's how I found out about it first, was through a release on a music site that I follow rather than a card site. Then it did come across there as well. So he's getting, Carvin's going to get that double whammy of promotion, which is obviously a good thing. Now, speaking to you directly, will you buy every release of these, or does it depend on who the artist is for you?
I do feel, well, one, I'm a big Carvin fan, so I really want to support Carvin, make sure I grab one of everyone. But it does feel like, hey, this is a cool new thing, and I want to be a part of every drop personally. So yeah, I do think I'm going to buy every single one. The other thing,
what if it's Tiny Tim?
Hey, Tiny Tim's a Minnesota resident just like me, so heritage is in play.
That might have been a bad
Nobody's so interesting. Like, that's what musicians are all like, really.
Yeah.
I don't know. What if it's like someone who gets panned, I don't know, whatever.
Miley Cyrus.
I like Miley.
Duran.
I like Miley too. What's that?
Duran.
Yeah, that's kind of, I don't know. It's all pretty fun. Like, the culture stuff is fun, man.
Who's the artist that they were lip syncing the whole song? What was
Milli Vanilli?
Milli Vanilli. That's what I meant to say, not Duran. So I want to go on record and say Milli Vanilli.
Well, listen. So Carvin has called his company The Infinite, which is a pretty bad, tough name. It's pretty cool, and it makes me think of the Infinity Gauntlet from Marvel. And you need to collect all the stones. So at least if this goes like Series 1, Series 2, like, I gotta get all those stones for Series 1, no doubt about it. Complete my Infinity Gauntlet.
I love some of the comments we're talking about, like different people, different musicians, not as popular, Mama Cass from the Mamas, and we could do a whole show on like not as famous musicians, but he's a legend in the hobby, and now with the Billboard back, and it is going to be interesting. I don't know if I'll buy any. I can't say I won't. I guess it depends. I'm not a huge weekend guy, so for me, it's probably going to be more on who the release is rather than just getting everyone. But it'll be fun to watch and see how it does and where it goes and what kind of effect it has, on other facets of the hobby or non-sports even. And heck, if it makes my Beastie Boys rookies worth more, I'm all for it. So.
Hey, John. So that's an interesting point that you bring up, though. Are you going to buy every drop? Because I think it speaks to something about non-sport. Non-sport is a giant category when you think about it. Like, we think of it as this little pocket of the hobby, and it is in terms of the volume of cards that are available. There just aren't a lot of, even some of the individual cards don't have high print runs. But us non-sport collectors, sometimes people say like, "Oh, did you pick up the latest Tiger King card?" And it's like, Tiger King's not really for me. And they're like, what? It's going to be a monster card. It was such a phenomenon. I'm like, I'm not buying every non-sport card that comes out. I am buying the cards that really appeal to me. And it's just like, it's just like sports cards. There's different things that can appeal to you. There are the vintage investors that get the really important vintage cards that they feel are important to the non-sport hobby. You've got your nostalgia collectors. And I think that's my biggest category. And it's kind of interesting because in sports, I do love vintage and I love history. But when it comes to non-sport, I've really glommed onto the nostalgia. That's what's fun for me. And then my second most interesting area for me is relevance. Like, do I like them today? Are they a star? Do I think they're interesting? So this is a controversial take for me, but I'm not the biggest Jay-Z fan in the world. I have no Jay-Z cards, and I don't feel bad about it. Like, of course, Pocketbook, if I was flipping, Jay-Z cards went up the most. And I collect a lot of rappers, but Jay-Z to me is just like, I get why people like him, but his music never vibed with me as much as others. And so I don't chase Jay-Z, and others do, and I cheer for them because that's their guy, and they love Jay-Z, and their cards are doing great, and that's awesome. But that's not my guy, so I collect other people.
Yeah, you mentioned Tiger King. I've never watched the show, so when I hear Tiger King, I'm either thinking like Ty Cobb or Al Kaline. So it's that shows you where my mind goes. But yeah, that stuff is like, I know Leaf put out the autographs and they sold out, and it's just, there's very little that doesn't sell out anymore. It's just that's where the hobby is now. There's just a niche for everyone. Is this, Adam, is this something, this Infinite product, is this something you'll entertain or look at? What's your approach to it?
So I look at it as more of a content creator rather than a buyer of the product. Like, if it's I like the Weeknd. I love all of his music. I like I love the Super Bowl performance. It's maybe not a card that I'll buy right away. Maybe if it's available in a couple weeks, it's maybe something that I'll buy. But like I said, I look at it as more of a content creator, and us as content creators, like any opportunity that's created that can bring more people, more eyes into our space, I think is a good opportunity, because that just adds to an audience that we're already trying to build. Like that's what most of us are trying to do here. I mean, that's what Carvin's trying to do. He's trying to build an audience to, whatever his ultimate plans are. Maybe this is his ultimate plan, is to work with these artists. Like, and I think also, like, I look at it, The Weeknd is like the biggest artist right now, in terms of just popularity. Whenever he comes out with new music, it's always number one on Billboard, all that kind of stuff. So, I look at it in that kind of sphere where I like that they're doing that. Companies are bringing in more eyeballs in different ways. I know that some people don't really like Project 2020 or Project 70, but I look at it differently. I look at it as like, you got a Ben Ball, or you got a Tyson Beck, you got an Ermsey, you got all these people who have these established audiences that they maybe had never known anything about sports cards, but now, and maybe that's their favorite artist, and now their favorite artist is making a sports card, and now maybe they're coming in as an audience member and trying to, gauge the market, look at it a little bit. But that gives us an opportunity as content creators to create content for new people that are coming in, who are trying to learn, maybe who are trying to buy some of these Project 70, Project 2020 cards. Another smaller company that I really like, that I think does a good job, is like Parkside Collectibles. They do like the NWSL, the Women's Professional Soccer League. They have, the owner has been in clubhouses and talked about kind of their future plans for bringing in some of these, like maybe smaller licenses and smaller in quotations. They're not necessarily smaller. They're just maybe not as well known. So I just look at it from that perspective, where I like something like this because it's bringing more eyeballs into a space where all of us are trying to grow our audiences. And this is just an opportunity for us to kind of jump into the conversation and help people learn something that we love. So I think that's kind of how I look at it.
For these cards to be based on the video Blinding Lights too is just super dope.
Right.
Adam, you're a fan, and that video is so cool. That video, you could watch it without the lyrics and just like wonder what in the world is going on with this. But there's incredible visual scenes, and to have some of those shots like are tailor made to be on some kind of piece of cardboard or displayed as stills, because they're just like really, really interesting shots. And so it's a great one to start out with. I'm excited for Carvin, and to get my card too. But so I thought of the band, John, the one that I would really, really struggle to buy. They're panned broadly and widely, and that's Nickelback. I don't know that I could pick that one up.
I don't know if you'll get too many arguments. I think you found the one.
That's the gem that blows up the gauntlet.
Yeah. Like if he would have came out with a Nickelback, that would have been the first card. His product would probably been dead in the water right.
I mean, as long as it was like that one meme where the guy's like holding the like picture frame and that's like the card, maybe that's the one.
Yeah, that's the only thing that can save it.
That's the one Nickelback one that I would buy, just because it's already a well-established meme.
And ironic, just leave it for the NFTs, man.
Right? Right.
But you make a great point, Adam. It's more exposure. It brings more people in the hobby. It's more content for us to cover. And we're talking about even teaching. I'm an old guy, and I'm still learning stuff each and every day. And the minute I stop learning, it's time for me to go, or I've already went, for that matter. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I'll obviously keep tabs on it. And if there is an artist that I like, one of the first messages I'm going to send is to Yam and say, is this his first card? Should I get it? Because you want the rookie, right? Even if you like an artist, and he's my go-to when I want to make sure, like, hey, is there something else I missed? But we're at, hey, listen, it was episode 100. We're at 100 minutes, like Yam said in the chat. I mean, listen, if we're gonna go 100 minutes, let's do it on episode 100. It was Adam's and Yam's first episode, so why not go a little overtime? The show's called Overtime, Hobby Hotline Overtime. Guys, a few people asked, to kind of introduce yourselves. I know we're kind of wrapping up, so we'll do sort of goodbye introductions. Normally we don't do this, but being this is your first episode and you spent some extra time with us, it's only fair. So each one of you kind of give out your shows, your content, your websites, your handles, where people can find your stuff and all that good stuff. Take your time. We're already at 100 minutes. What's a few more minutes? We'll start with Adam.
Sure. So pretty much any social media platform is going to be Heroes for Sale. The one that I'm focusing on now is TikTok. I've got podcasts, I've got Instagram, Twitter, Reddit. I just started a Discord. It's not really anything yet, but if you search through Twitter, you'll probably be able to find it there. But I mean, pretty much on any social media platform, if you just search Heroes for Sale, you'll most likely be able to find some new piece of content that I've created.
Awesome. Yam, Corey Donovan.
Hey, John, great. Hey, man, thanks so much for having me on. It was an honor to be on episode 100, to be on here for the first time ever with Adam, his first time too. Is so cool, and to chat with everybody in here. So it's been a blast. Yeah, man. And Drew and Brad to join too. That was special. So appreciate it. I'm just an enthusiastic collector, man. I came back in 2018. I like to explore new avenues, have fun, deep dive into non-sport. I like chasing that first card of non-sports. And so I'm at Yamwax on Instagram. That's mostly where I hang out. Twitter a little bit too, at Yamwax23. But that's basically it. I'm just, I love connecting with people, happy to answer questions, to help John or anyone else out with, hey, I'm looking for the first card of this unique individual. I kind of cover a lot of different things.
And, this is your first, you're going to be, you guys are regulars. Just want to remind everybody the show will be Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. I don't know if they'll always be over 100 minutes long, but we were today. Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Saturday mornings, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And you'll see these guys on potentially both days and some of the other hosts as well. I think we've got, I lose track now, 19, 20, depending on what day it is. So a lot of different voices, different opinions, different perspectives, different parts of the country. I mean, we got almost all the bases covered, male, female, both, which is important. So, it'll be fun. And, we must be having fun. We went long. So these guys will be back. I don't do the schedule. We'll have to see what Val comes up with, but we'll be back. The show will be back this Saturday. I believe it'll be Jeremy Lee from Sports Cards Live, Rich Klein, and Ryan Nolan from Breakout Cards. Those are your three hosts for the next show, again, which will be Saturday. So with that being said, if you're watching us live, thank you. And if you're listening to this in podcast form, we thank you as well. Everyone have a great Thanksgiving, a great rest of the week, and we'll see you back here on Saturday morning. Take care.
Thanks.